Well, here's another one. Always broken. People always bring me broken shit. Why do they always bring me broken shit and I can never just get on it and ride it? Look at all the dirt that's in here. Let's see if I can do this one-handed without dropping my camera. Drum looks okay, not damaged. Yeehaw! Well, anyway, 2011 M8 800. I believe this was a Firecat, I think is what it said. Buddy brought it over. It ran kind of, sort of, and it was having an intermittent spark issue. And then, so I fixed some wiring, which was, you know, up here. It was pretty interesting. I've actually pulled the whole harness out. The whole harness is sitting over there on my bench. But so we fixed all the wiring. He got it running. It was running semi-okay. It wasn't really running right. I just wanted to see if I could make a run around the yard, and it died around the back. I got maybe 30 feet, and no spark. Absolutely nothing kaput. Nada. So my thoughts are bad wiring, a plug, shorted wires. I found some interesting stuff. Stator checks out. I'm pretty sure the rectifier, right now for spark, doesn't matter, but I'm pretty sure the rectifier is okay. Yeah, so let's go over and I'll show you what I found. So here's the whole harness. I got it all laid out. I got every piece required. So these machines run, and when you shut it off, it connects a circuit. So if you have any short of a spark wire to a ground, any sort of power wire that's connected up into the shut-off circuit, if it's shorted to ground, you'll have no spark. And the initial assessment was the computer was gone. I don't buy it. These computers are they're pretty indestructible. It'd be pretty hard to destroy this. I think the only time I've ever seen something like this be fried or wrecked is when there's like a visible hole or a crack and you get water in it and then it fries all the circuits. Other than that, these are pretty indestructible. Even the capacitors, you see, they're not popped. They're still in good shape. Like all the capacitors are good. No green crusties, no black burnt. It doesn't smell bad. So I just don't buy it that the computer's fried. But a buddy of mine loaned me, so this is a 2011. He loaned me a 2009. And it looks pretty darn close, except for the pins. The pins in the second connector are wrong. So those are both the same size, and they got one small one, one big one. So I wasn't even going to try. I mean, it's pretty, you know, when you flip it over, it is pretty damn close. You know, it's got the same diodes, same capacitors. You know, everything looks pretty much identical. But like I said, I don't buy it that the computer is shot. I don't buy it. They're so hard. So a couple things I found. So this was an added-on connection. So this sled, it's a pretty wild machine. So whoever they didn't install it, they put a turbo on it. So it's got this sick-ass, what is it, CT, something or other. It's got this, what the heck is this? What is that? Yeah, a CTC turbo kit. I mean, this is a pretty wild kit, right? That's a fairly stout turbo for a two-stroke. So I had multiple thoughts, you know, like there's this oil tank here and it's got a pump, right? In order to keep the turbo lubricated and not wipe out the bushing, which is not in bad shape. You got to have the pump pumping the oil, cycling the oil through the turbo. So you've got coolant lines that go through and keep the turbo moderately cool, keeps it about the same temperature as the engine. And then you have your lubrication at the top and then out the bottom. So this is like just like a scavenger pump type thing it'll pump the oil from the tank up and through. So you always have to have oil in the tank. Oil is interesting, looks okay, has a fairly odd smell. I think it's the smell of the type of oil. Everything seems to be okay. I mean, the wastegate moves. You never see me in there. It's got a pretty tough spring in it, but yes, the wastegate moves. So there's all this added on shit on top of the factory wiring that sort of makes you think, you know, maybe something got fried, because if you're going to add boost to a two-stroke, or boost to any machine at all, you need to be able to control fuel. This here is a fuel pressure gauge. You can control the fuel pressure from the fuel pump to the injectors, because when you add boost, you need more fuel to keep that mixture cool. And if you lean out the mixture, I don't know if you've ever watched, you know, like race cars, like let's just say Cletus McFarland, and he had Leroy had 60 pounds of boost on idle fuel, and he baked that whole entire engine in about, I don't know, 5 seconds. So you have to have, it's got this fuel controller here. So if there's like power issues to this fuel controller, and I'm just noticing now there's some funky looking stuff there. I think I see some wires. Oh yeah, look at that. You can see the wire on there. So I might have to pop this little rubber nugget off of here and fix that. But anyway, there's actually a boost. So when you have your boost, you have your boost intake, and it's got your boost intake's got those 3 little lines coming out of it. Well, you have like vacuum control, you have boost control, and you have one that it's a boost gauge, and the boost gauge goes up here. So you have one to the computer, one to the boost controller, and one to the gauge. So I mean, this thing is pretty sick, and if I can get it running and get that turbo on it, this thing, holy man, you won't be able to hang on to it. Your arms, you're gonna feel like you're, you know, ripping your arms off. But yeah, I've been just going through all the wiring. I got all the parts. I got everything pulled apart. This is the boost controller. This is the kill switch. Something interesting too is they didn't have the tether. So you have the tether on there, right? So if you fall off, it shuts off. The tether wasn't connected anywhere in here. And then you have this switch. It took me a while to figure out what the hell this switch is. And what I've got it figured out as, this switch goes to the temperature sensor. And what I believe it does is, when you have a temperature in the engine, the temperature of the coolant, you know, times the temperature of the air going in, gives you your fuel ratio. So when you confuse that, say purposely short it out, it may give you full fuel pressure, and then you can control it with your fuel pressure gauge here. But I also noticed that something here wasn't working right. We weren't getting any numbers or anything on this fuel pressure gauge. So you should be able to get the engine running. And you see the gauge is kind of like stuck. It's stuck at what? 2 pounds? 2, 4, 6, you know, 2, 4, 6, 10, 3, 6. Who the hell does that to a gauge? Anyway, it's stuck. So my thoughts are also that it doesn't have fuel control. And you can see this is all a kit. So the CPC Racing, CPC Turbo. You need all this stuff to make these things run. And when we did get it running, after we fixed the wiring, I was going, you know, kind of giving her a bit. And when that wastegate doesn't open up, it's a little bit spooky. You let off and she still goes a bit and then kind of comes out of it. So I knew there was something really funky going on here. So my guess is it's not getting power. Because I also noticed too, I'm going to show you back the stuff over here. So along with this, so this would be the AFR gauge, because in that turbo there is a O2 sensor. This is the power and the ground that run that. So this is kind of a weird setup here. This here for the AFR gauge, so the air fuel ratio gauge, they stole power from the backup alarm. Now that's kind of weird, but whatever. Most things that are run by a computer are ground side switched, so they always have power to them. It's safer to run a ground or pull it to ground than it is to pull power through it. That's pretty hard on an electrical system, so they do it simple, right? Everything is ground side switched. Even in your simple basic cars, it's a ground side switch. They pull power from the backup alarm up to the AFR gauge, and then there was a plug. Yeah, there was a plug that went into the AFR gauge for the, and that will talk with the computer and say, hey, the mixture's lean, you got to add more fuel. So then it can add more fuel based on that computer. So that also being said, with that switch, then this guy here, where is it, that computer? This guy here can take over fuel control, because like I said, more boost requires more fuel. You can't just have, a basic simple, like let's say you had a carburetor, you would still need fuel control with that carburetor. You'd need a certain pressure of fuel to be able to take the amount of boost that goes into an engine. This is where I'm at. So with that screwed up wire, that melted wire, which I threw down somewhere, then I also found something else. I found this. This was a headlight that had been smashed, and check that out. How in the hell do you do that and not know that that's happened? So that right there is a dead short. So my suspicions are somewhere in here we have a bundle of melted wire that is basically shorting all the powers to grounds, and if that means all the powers to grounds, it doesn't matter how much power the stator is putting out, everything gets pulled to ground. Because I tested that stator, it all checked out. But yeah, what about that? Like, you can even see where it's been arcing. How do you even do that? I mean, at the very least, man, unplug the headlight. But this was the first thing I found in about 30 seconds when I popped the hood. This guy is lucky that this is the little bit of screwery that we found is all because it could have completely fried that whole wiring harness. You ride up the trails and you smell some melted wires. So this was one that I found. I also fixed some wire up here. Oh, that's my little fix there. That is all heat shrink wrapped, and I just got tape around it just to protect it. So yeah, this is all screwy, and a lot of this was melted here too. This harness. Oh, whoops. All this harness. This is like this is your factory OE gauge cluster, which everything on the gauge cluster works. Oh yeah, here's the AFR plug. So they look okay. I mean, yeah, they're a little crusty on the outside, but the pins look amazing. And it's got, that is not oil, that's dielectric grease, which is good. It keeps the moisture, keeps the water out. But yeah, stuff like this and stuff like that headlight, I'm gonna say it's not the computer. I really highly doubt it's the computer. It's pretty hard to fry these, man. You can have so much going wrong, and these things can just take it. So that's why I'm thinking there's something in the harness. I've pulled quite a bit of the harness apart, checked the wires, but we're going to find a bundle. You see like these bundles right here, like this bundle here? This is just like a bundle of grounds that are all tied together. Something simple. So this is what I'm doing today. I'm not going to bore you with showing you everything that I'm doing. I'm also pulling all the connectors apart and just checking and making sure that all the pins are not touching. There's also dielectric in here, so that's a good thing that somebody cared enough about this machine. But yeah, I've essentially pulled the whole harness apart. You know, I could tell you, so this plug here, this is the handlebar plug, right? There's the main plug. This is power, like any power. I think they call it power. This is clock power. This one here is your key, your shut off, on and off. And then this is a handlebar for handlebar warmers. There's also this nasty rotten thing here. This was a body ground that I found just like this. And this right here, this could be the culprit of why there's no spark. But it's simple. And there's stuff on here I couldn't get to on the machine, and it took 20 minutes to just say fuck it, pull the whole harness out, throw it on the bench. And I got this whole lighted area. I can go through every connection, every pin, just check everything out. So that's what I'm doing today. If I find anything, I'll bring you back. If not, I'll bring you back when we're putting a new computer in it. I really don't buy that the computer's fried, but there is a possibility. I mean, crazier shit has happened. Gotta open that up next. Well, I got her all set up. I did not find anything in the wiring harness. Nothing. But I did discover something. The computer's bad. Yeah. So I have a computer here for a 1000. they're very close. They're very similar, like I showed before. The ignition spark is the same on both plugs. So I tried something. So here's the old one. Plug the old one in. There's the old one, plugged in, and I'll zoom you right in on that spark plug. And you're looking right there at that spark plug. Move the boot, put that plug up there. Can you see it? Okay, let me give her a couple of yanks. Nothing. No spark. Nothing. Okay. So what I did, because I did this testing before I turned the camera on because I don't want to look retarded. I unplug this. So this side here is the ignition, the spark. This is all the stuff that comes off the stator. I'll unplug that one too because that's extra power, extra stuff. And here's the computer for the 1000. So this plug still works, still the same ignition. I'm not going to plug the other one in because we're just chasing spark, and then we'll put you back down here again. I'll zoom you back in on that spark plug. Okay, focus, Mr. Camera. Okay, you're looking at that spark plug. And we got spark. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. That's confirmation that that computer is bad. Okay, well, I was hoping to make a video of this thing all running again, but the hunt for a computer is on. And then could actually probably put a lot of this stuff all back together, get the wiring harness all tucked back in there and wrap it all up, and yeah. That's going to end this video. It's kind of a crappy one, but there we go. That's why when you run a sled, it costs a lot of money. Alright, bye.